Joining us now is elections correspondent at the Federalist, Brianna Lyman. Brianna, thank you for joining us on Power Hour. Let's start with Donald Trump and Elon Musk. They've been certainly upfront about what Doge is discovering. Just yesterday, Elon rattled off a few examples, including people who are receiving social security checks who happen to be 150 years old. Now, Doge is also digging into federal employees whose net worth just doesn't seem to match their salaries. They're just curious, and I'm sure so is the taxpayer, as to how some federal employees who are on a few $100,000 are somehow sitting on tens of millions.
We do find it sort of rather odd that there are quite a few people in the bureaucracy who have ostensibly a salary of a few $100,000, but somehow manage to accrue tens of millions of dollars in net worth while they are in that position. I think the reality is that they're getting wealthy at the taxpayer expense. That's the honest truth of it.
And what else is wild? That only 10,000 people from the federal government can retire a month because the retirement paperwork is on paper, which goes down a mine where all the paperwork is stored. Here's some of the images of this mine in Pennsylvania. Now, this retirement process takes multiple months, and a factor in all of this is the speed of the elevator down to the mine. You know, you cannot make this stuff up. Brianna, what's your reaction to all of this?
I'll just go in order because this has been a very shocking thing. First of all, with the Social Security payments, there is severe Social Security fraud and abuse in the United States. In just 1 year, we saw $40 million go out to payments to dead people in 3 states. That's just 3 states because people run a scam, right? When someone dies, they take their Social Security number, and for decades, they're getting the benefits. So there's a huge problem. He's right to address that. Then you mentioned the second problem of all these politicians making a lot of money. Look no further than Nancy Pelosi, who was millions of dollars let me rephrase that, because there is concern of insider stock trading. There needs to be a ban on that in Congress. We don't have that yet, so bringing that to light will be important. And lastly, the limestone thing, I'll be honest, I had no idea that mine even existed, but it's just indicative of a government that is so useless that there needs to be some serious reform.
Absolutely. And the other part in all of this is what Elon says is what they're actually doing is very basic. They're going through certain categories and certain lists, and there are people or companies that are on the do not pay list, which include terrorists, and they're still getting paid. I mean, it makes me feel sick, just the amount of money that is being wasted and where it's going.
Absolutely. You know, there's a series. Thomas Jefferson, he said, "I am for a government rigorously frugal and simple." We have far exceeded that definition of government. And unfortunately, Donald Trump and Elon Musk are catching the brunt of the fight from the Democrats and the establishment media, who are upset that we are now exposing the rampant fraud and the fleecing of taxpayers. But luckily, I think Donald Trump doesn't care this go around as much as he may have cared his first term. He's going to do what's necessary to bring this to light.
It's funny, people are now making Elon Musk the new Donald Trump. They've attacked Donald Trump as much as they can, so now Elon is the new target and they're going after him, and they're claiming that he's not transparent, which is beyond a joke. You try and name anyone in any previous government that has been as transparent as this one. And today, Democrats, well, this one, Summer Lee, had this to say about the Trump administration.
Our government, no matter who is in power, has an obligation to right these wrongs, to provide reparations for descendants of enslaved Africans, to eliminate the racial wealth gap, to uplift the Black community. White supremacy is rampant in this country. Just look at the current administration and our own legislative body. They have contributed to the social and economic harms, to racial terror Black folks have experienced in this country. Now, more than ever, we must acknowledge and repair those harms.
It's getting a bit old now, isn't it, that Trump and his administration are full of white supremacists?
There's 2 points to make. First of all, the reparations argument has been around for a long time, and the Supreme Court has consistently ruled that remedial relief for certain different types of groups, so racial groups, minorities, what have you, cannot be given by the government that did not cause the actual harm. The government of the 1800s is not the government we have today, so that's one problem. Second of all, yes, it is an attempt to character assassinate Republicans, Elon Musk, and anybody associated with them by calling them white supremacists and Nazis, and it's very insulting to people who survived the Holocaust, right? Who survived the 1950s, where there were legitimate white supremacists carrying out awful attacks in America. It is a slap in the face.
It is, and the media, the left-wing media just continues to run with this narrative, and they continue to attack, well, now Elon Musk, seeing as they've had enough of attacking Donald Trump for now. And I saw this post on X and it made me laugh. How long until there are cries about no one elected little X? Of course, that is referring to Elon Musk's son, who joined Elon Musk and Donald Trump in the White House for that press conference. And surely it's not going to be long. Brianna, what do you make of it?
Look, there is a problem right now that the mainstream media, who should rightly be called the propaganda press in America, has. Elon Musk is exposing what they could have exposed for decades. All of the funding that he's uncovering is publicly available. In fact, the Federalist CEO, my boss, Sean Davis, actually worked on the legislation that made this type of information available. But these so-called journalists sat on their hands for decades because they did not want to uncover the rampant fleecing and abuse of taxpayers. They were trying to protect the status quo of DC, and now they're mad that Elon is not only exposing Democrats, but exposing the propaganda machine.
Donald Trump has continued his successful cabinet confirmation role. Tulsi Gabbard has been officially approved by the Senate to become Trump's Director of National Intelligence. Now, the vote was 52 to 48. Former GOP Senate leader Mitch McConnell opposed Tulsi Gabbard. But Brianna, Tulsi was one of the ones where there was a bit of concern about whether or not she would actually get through, but now she is. And I suspect, just like what we're seeing with Doge, we're going to get more transparency with Tulsi in.
Absolutely, and that's exactly why Democrats and certain Republicans, who should be referred to as rhinos, opposed her nomination and her being appointed. Look, Tulsi Gabbard is someone who is a Democrat. She is not some hardcore Republican. She is an American, though. She served this country honorably. She has worked to try and make sure this country doesn't slip down the slippery slope. And instead of being rewarded, she was put on a no-fly list, right? The Biden administration was targeting her. And so the reason Democrats are worried is because she is now in charge of the people who tried to blacklist her.
I want to talk to you about this deportation effort. Border Czar Tom Homan has confirmed that the FBI leaked critical details about planned immigration raids, saying that the agency is putting officers' lives at risk by doing this. Now, Homan said that the leaks are being investigated and authorities are quite certain that the leaks are coming from inside the FBI. Here he is.
We think it's coming from inside, and we know the first leak of Aurora is under current investigation. We think we identified that person. Under investigation right now. The California leak, Secretary Noem, she's correct. Some of the information we're receiving tends to lead toward the FBI.
It's unbelievable that there are concerns that people within the FBI are tipping off illegal gangs to keep them safe and put officers' lives at risk.
Donald Trump has been receiving a lot of slack recently because he's trying to reduce the federal workforce. And one of the things he explains is that he wants people within the executive branch who are on his side, right? Who want to have the same agenda and the same mission. This just underscores why that is so desperately needed, because you have people within these agencies, these unelected officials, actively conspiring not only against Donald Trump, but against the mandate that the American people gave on November 5th. And it is very dangerous to forewarn gang members that law-abiding Americans who are doing their job trying to remove these criminals are on their way. That is going to lead to mass chaos someday soon if Donald Trump doesn't get a handle on it. But Tom Homan and Donald Trump seem like they're handling this.
Absolutely. Let's talk about JD Vance. The Vice President spoke brilliantly at the AI Action Summit in Paris, where he said that US artificial intelligence, AI systems, must not become tainted with ideological bias. That is such an important point. But just to remind everyone about how different our worlds would be right now if JD Vance was not America's Vice President and the US had Kamala Harris in charge. Let's just take a look at what Kamala Harris had to say about AI and what JD Vance has had to say and just compare the difference.
The U.S. possesses all components across the full AI stack, including advanced semiconductor design, frontier algorithms, and of course, transformational applications.
AI is kind of a fancy thing. First of all, it's 2 letters. It means artificial intelligence.
It's important to kind of go back and watch how different the world would be if Kamala Harris won. It's unbelievable going back and watching those clips, and she just doesn't make any sense.
It's such a contrast of competency between the two administrations. And what's really important is that JD Vance is able to understand the problems facing America, especially AI, and whether or not European, adversaries and even allies have their own grip on this. And I will make one note about AI in general. Robert Conquest, he had 3 laws. His second law is that any organization that is not explicitly right-wing will soon become left-wing. And I think AI, there is a risk that if we don't make sure that the left-wing cohort that has operated so many organizations and so many neutral sources, if they get control of that, AI becomes an extremely dangerous tool in America. So it's important Donald Trump and JD Vance take the stance they're taking, which is we want to encourage AI, but we want to make sure it's being done in a way that's not going to harm half of America if it gets under the grips of the left.
Absolutely. Brianna Lyman, elections correspondent at the Federalist, thank you so much for joining us on Power Hour.
Thanks for having me.